5 ways to make your yoga more mindful. Hi, and welcome to Yoga Stories Project. Each session, I talk with yogis about their life and practice. I do this to inspire and empower you to bring yoga and mindfulness into your life. Who am I? I'm Hunter Clark-Field's Mindfulness Mama mentor. I coach smart, accomplished, overstressed moms on how to cultivate mindfulness in their daily lives. I've been practicing yoga and mindfulness for over 20 years and have taught thousands of women worldwide. Hey there, I'm so glad you're here again listening to Yoga Stories Project. This is another solo podcast. It's just me. I'm going to be talking to you about yoga and mindfulness and how there is no yoga without mindfulness. We're going to go a little bit deeper, but I want to quickly thank our sponsor, Present Mama Community. Go check it out, presentmamacommunity.com. And I want to thank my friend for the new iTunes review, Leanne, Annie. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. If you want to send me an email with your email address at hunter@hunteryoga.com, I will send you a personal thank you note. So, and if you would like to give me a review on iTunes, I would be happy to send anyone a nice personal thank you note. Let's connect in person. Let's bring it out of the earbuds and into reality, into your mailbox. So anyway, I say I teach yoga and mindfulness. And in my life, they tend to be kind of, at least in the teaching of it, they tend to feel pretty separate in the, I teach a public yoga class, which is physical asana based. And then I teach, I do the mindfulness retreat, which is, more mindfulness. And there is some yoga in there. But the thing about it is that there is no yoga without mindfulness. It really doesn't exist. Without mindfulness, yoga goes back to its earlier roots in sort of Russian gymnastics, right, where we're just moving the body. But yoga, to have it be actually practicing yoga, if you are practicing yoga, you are practicing mindfulness, because there is no yoga without mindfulness. So mindfulness is bringing our awareness to the present moment non-judgmentally, bringing our awareness to our feelings, to our thoughts, to our sensations, with a sense of curiosity. And I think this sense of curiosity is really important when we think about mindfulness and yoga, because the yogis were kind of like these scientists, right? Being curious about consciousness and wanting to develop consciousness. And that curiosity component is really, really important. I mean, if you look at originally yoga was developed to train the body and mind to self-observe and become aware of our own nature. Yoga was developed to cultivate discernment, awareness, lots of self-regulation, and this higher consciousness. That was the goal of yoga. And asana is a physical practice. The asana postures were developed to help us do this. So in yoga, there's a path. There's an eightfold path. And this path really takes the individual and takes you from sort of your bigger outer, it takes you from the outer to the inner. It takes you from your behaviors into your very consciousness. So it starts out with the outer behaviors. It starts out with the yamas. What are they called? They're called restraints. They include we're not violent. We don't lie. We don't steal. We don't, grasp. So non-greed, right? So it takes a human being and says first, and Patanjali indicated that this path is really kind of like a ladder, right? Where you're starting at one end and you move up sort of through this steadily. So, from this point of view, it was like, first, let's start out before we even step foot on a mat or meditate, like, let's practice not lying. Let's practice not being violent. Like, come on, folks, let's get these things together. Very much like the precepts in any spiritual tradition. Once the person practicing yoga learned to kind of restrain the impulses to be violent or greedy and things like that, then they took the next step, right, which are the niyamas. And the niyamas were these practices to help, these sort of positive actions, positive attitudes and disciplines to help you get on the path. And they include being clean and cleanly. They include contentment, this santosha. They include having some fire in your belly for practicing more. And they include self-study. And in the yoga tradition, they also include devotion to a higher power. The niyamas were there to, so first you start out in this larger level of your behavior, and then you get a little more refined. And then finally, the asanas, the physical practices, they come along at the third limb of this yogic path by Patanjali. And the idea of the asanas was to take control of your physical body. So now that the yoga practitioner has brought some mindfulness to your behaviors in the world and your intentions in the world, now you can bring that mindfulness and that curiosity into your physical body. And it really was from the beginning, mindfulness was very much rooted in the postures. In the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, he doesn't say much about alignment or how to come in and out of a pose or anything like that. It's more about having steadiness and ease. So how can we have steadiness and ease as we hold these postures? Patanjali didn't say much about coming into and out of the postures. He just said that we should have steadiness and ease in the postures. And of course, as you know, the postures are kind of where we've gone crazy and they've exploded, and we've had a lot of interest in physical postures, and they're amazing. They release tension, they build strength, but I invite you to think of the physical postures as what the intention was. These physical postures are going to help us develop awareness of our body and mind. So the yogis were kind of like these scientists, like, let's come into these postures and see how it affects the body. How can it help us live optimally? How can it help us reduce suffering? And absolutely, reducing tension in the body, reducing our fight or flight, stress response in the body. All these things are things that absolutely do help us live more optimally and with more intention. In yoga, along that path, asana was just this third step, though. It's pretty interesting. After that came pranayama, which is controlling the breath or the prana, the energy inside your body. So as you can see, we're going from outward behaviors to we're going more inward. We're going to the body, and then we're going to the breath, and then we go to withdrawal of the senses. Actually, is the step after that is really kind of to develop this higher consciousness. The yogis wanted us to sort of pull out of the things in the outer world that cause us suffering, that trigger greed and grasping, and really go inward to understand ourselves and develop that self-understanding. And then once you're bringing your body and your senses under control through all of these things, then it really becomes about concentration and meditation. And then meditation, they see meditation as sort of the last step before, samadhi, which is true liberation from suffering. And it's very similar to the Eightfold Path of Buddhism, which is, mindfulness is rooted in the tradition of Buddhism, where you're paying attention to the present moment. Buddhism does not have a devotion to a higher power embedded in there, but the Eightfold Path of Buddhism includes, right understanding, right concentration, similar things, right speech, right action, looking at those outer behaviors, right livelihood and effort, and right mindfulness, right mindfulness and concentration. So this mindfulness and concentration has been, as we look at the Patanjali's Eightfold Path and the Eightfold Path of Yoga, this has been part of it from the very beginning. And I think that it really is and can be part of it in many different kinds of yoga traditions too, even in maybe a real vigorous yoga, because you're bringing, it's almost impossible to be in like a vinyasa yoga class and not be paying attention to your body. So bringing that attention into your body is and I like the way, Patanjali's Yoga Sutras brings that in, where you're going from the outer and progressively inward. And so as you, my listener, my dear listener, I'm so glad you're here to connect with, but as you are on this path, right, yoga is a really wonderful way to start that mindfulness practice, because it really is more, you think I have this vision in my head of it like a funnel, right? Where you slowly take these like outer pieces, your behavior, you move your physical body and you bring your attention, and then it's slow as you practice, you can get more subtle, and you can help yourself have less suffering and less suffering. It's progressive path. For me, I started practicing yoga when I was 17, but I also practiced at that time running, actually. Like running was a great way for me to actually come into my body in this stage of life when I was so in my head and there's so much suffering. Running was even, more accessible and more direct for me than yoga at that time, because I could just go do it. And at first, of course, I did it with headphones, like, running to like Wu-Tang Clan and Nine Inch Nails, because that's what I needed. I needed to come into my body in a way. And then eventually I was able to drop the headphones altogether. And as you practice, as you move in your yoga practice in through the physical, think of it as a path inward to the heart. You're taking these outer, and I'm moving my arms around here, but you're taking these outer, fuller, bigger behaviors, and you're bringing mindfulness into them. And as you build that muscle, you can slowly get more and more refined. And for me, running was a path to mindfulness, in that I started practicing mindfulness while I ran, and walking is a great way to practice as well, and yoga. As you bring your attention into your body in these bigger levels, you're developing that muscle to bring your attention into your body, maybe in a sitting meditation. And I have to say, sitting meditation, it's right up there, like right before true liberation samadhi on the Eightfold Path, because it really is. Dr. Shefali Sabari said, it's the gold standard. There's nothing else to do but to focus your attention on your body and mind, and to really see yourself and develop that self-awareness. And the thing about me talking to you about this Eightfold Path and how it was kind of like this ladder, right, where we did these outer behaviors and then we did these inners. But you can jump in. You can jump in with meditation. You can jump in with these different levels. And we're always working, on these different pieces. So with all of that in mind, I want to give you 5 ways that you can make your yoga practice more mindful. And you can also actually think about using these 5 ways to make your yoga more mindful as ways to make your walking more mindful, or your running, or whatever physical activity you're doing. Okay? So here we go. Number 1. Be deliberate about practicing mindfulness. So this is all about setting an intention to be mindful for a certain period of time. It's nice, going to a yoga practice or practicing at home, because often we are intentionally setting aside that time to be aware in our bodies, to practice that self-awareness. And this can, whether it's 5 minutes or it's 90 minutes, it really doesn't matter. But think about saying to yourself, from this time to this time, I am going to be deliberate about practicing mindfulness. I mean, this could even go to if you are a new mother nursing your child. You could say, okay, and you have no time for your mindfulness practice, you could say, okay, I'm going to actually set a timer. I'm going to look at my clock. I'm going to set this time. I'm going to practice focusing on my breath, focusing on the present moment, bringing my attention back each time my mind wanders in a friendly way for the next 10 minutes, and be deliberate about that time. And because we can't be mindful all the time, we can't just slip it in from time to time and think, oh, I'll just practice as I should. It doesn't really work that way. We really need to be intentional about practicing our mindfulness. Without the intention, our mind just wanders, and that's just how it is. It's not that it's bad or wrong or anything. It's just how the brain works. So, number 1, be deliberate about practicing. Set an intention. Number 2, making your yoga more mindful, anchor yourself in your breath. So think about your breath as an anchor. Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, the only thing it says about yoga postures is that they should have steadiness and ease. You can think of steadiness as when a teacher might be saying firm up your muscles or things like that, making your postures more physically steady. But we often here in the United States, we're great at making our postures more challenging, but we're not great at the ease part, right? So the ease part means simplifying and our postures. So how can we simplify the postures? Anchoring in the breath is a great way to do that. When you can think about your mind body as the ship that is kind of gets a little distracted. You sort of float away. You get distracted by thoughts and and comparisons and all kinds of things. Make your breath your anchor. Come back to your breath. Really do a deliberate breathing in your yoga practice. We can always come back to this. We can also control our breath so that we can deepen it and slow it down. Make your breath your anchor. Number 2. Number 3, focus on feeling the sensations in your body. So we have 2 parts of our brain. We have many parts of our brain, but there are 2 specific parts that we experience. One is sort of this narrative part of our brain that tells us all these stories, and the other is the experiential part of our brain. And yoga is a great way to come into the experiential part of your brain. And you do that as you focus on, yes, your breath, but also beyond your breath, going into the sensations in your body. Like, what does your foot feel like on the floor? What can you feel the tingling in your fingers and in your toes? Are you ignoring the tension in your neck, or can you notice it and start to change it? Bring your attention to that area of your stretch. If there's an area that you're going up to that area of your edge, and be curious about it. This is like an experiment. What does the mind body do in this situation? Be curious about what does that sensation feel like. And it may not necessarily mean like putting a label on it or naming it in some way, but actually just like you've never experienced it before. What is the sensation feel like? So number 3 is focus on the feeling the sensations in your body, the felt sensations in your body from the inside and the outside. Number 4, notice your thoughts. So like I said, we have this narrative part of our brain. It is going all the time. It is going like 99% of the time we are awake, and even when we are not awake, right? So you're going to think. Part of a mindfulness practice and part of it in your yoga practice is just noticing when you're thinking and then coming back to that anchor of your breath or that anchor of the sensations in your body, right? So you're going to notice when you're judging, when you're complaining, when you are telling some story about yourself and what you can and can't do. Notice all of those and label them as thinking. When you do that, what that does is it instantly brings you back into the present moment, and it gives you this slight bit of distance away from your thoughts. So that rather than kind of believing everything we think, don't believe everything you think. Instead, notice these thoughts as just thoughts. That's all they are. They're thoughts. And then once we notice them as thoughts, we can choose whether to believe them or not to believe them. And instead of like feeling bad about maybe having complaining thoughts or judging thoughts or whatever kind of thoughts we're having, think of all of these thoughts as food for self-awareness. Just notice how, when I'm in my yoga practice and my brain starts thinking like, man, my brain, it's like the ego brain is just going, talking. It's all about me, it's all about, making me separate from everybody else. And you'll probably find that with your thoughts too. That's just how the brain and the ego mind works. It's all about separating you from others. So as you start to notice those thoughts, you can start to separate yourself from just being in them and believing those thoughts. And you can notice that you are not your thoughts. We're going to have like every kind of crappy thought there is out there. That's okay. Doesn't mean you're a bad person, just means you have a brain that thinks. Notice it as food for self-awareness. And when you do, oh, there I am, I'm thinking again. It's not that I'm a bad person, that I'm judging myself or judging others. It's just that's what the brain likes to do, and I'm going to come back to my breath. Breathing in, breathing out. Simplify your practice by making it more mindful. So number 4, notice your thoughts. And then number 5 is so crucial and so important. Bring an attitude of friendliness and curiosity to your yoga practice. Too often, so the thing about yoga is, right, like we say that it's non-judgmental and we want to be taking care of our bodies and loving our bodies. But the thing is, we bring all the stuff that we have in our culture into the yoga room. So, the teachers bring it in, the other people bring it in, we all bring it in. So we bring in, body hatred, we bring in self-judgment, we bring in judgment of others, we bring all that stuff in. And it's okay, it's okay that that's just how the brain reacts to the culture. It's okay that those thoughts are there, but instead, now that it's wrong to have those thoughts, those are just thoughts. But when we notice them, when we start to bring mindfulness to them, then we have a choice, right? Then we have a choice whether to think them. And instead, we can choose to cultivate an attitude of friendliness and curiosity, right? So, if you notice yourself coming into a pose and you're judging yourself, oh, I can't go, I can't fold like these other people are folding. My hamstrings are so tight. Oh my God, I suck. All this stuff. Once you notice that, notice your thoughts. Come back to your breathing. And then how could you bring an attitude of friendliness and curiosity? So if you were going to instead have a friendly attitude to yourself, what might you say? Wow, I'm grateful for my my legs that are working and that I get to be here in this class, and I'm glad that I'm getting to take care of my body in this way at this time, cultivating a friendliness and a gratitude for the body and all that it does for you, from your heart beating to your blood and your bones and your gut bacteria and your breath and all the different ways your body works for you. Not everybody has that. So how can we bring this attitude of friendliness in? And the thing is, we have a negativity bias. We have to cultivate it. We have to practice it. We have to practice bringing this friendly attitude in. We have to practice this friendliness in our thinking towards ourselves and friendliness in thinking towards others. So if we notice ourselves in line, thinking judgmental thoughts about another person in line, we can notice that and then say, look, I was thinking a judgmental thought. What might be a friendly and more gracious thought that I can think? Bring this sense of curiosity. So non-judgment is the word often used in mindfulness. And, our brains are going to judge. That's kind of what they do. But on the other end of the spectrum of judgment is curiosity. So judgment is saying, this is this, and that's what it is. But in fact, everything is changing and shifting and impermanent. Everything is constantly changing all of the time. So instead of creating a label that labels something and makes it permanently, this is what it is, always in my mind, how can we bring in a sense of curiosity? In your yoga practice, in my yoga practice, it's always changing. Some days I feel a certain way in my yoga practice. Some days my yoga practice is really hard. Can I be curious about that and use this as fruit for more self-understanding, more self-awareness? So these are the 5 ways to make your yoga more mindful. 1, be deliberate about practicing. Set an intention. Number 2, anchor yourself in your breath. Number 3, focus on feeling the sensations in your body. Number 4, notice your thoughts. And number 5, so important, bring an attitude of friendliness and curiosity to your yoga practice. It might even be helpful to write down these 5 things, or write down your intention. What is your intention when you come to your yoga practice? Are you coming to a vigorous yoga practice to punish your body into shape? Or are you coming to your practice to nurture your body, to bring together body and mind, to cultivate a higher consciousness and more understanding? Go back to those original intentions of yoga, right? Those original intentions to live more optimally, to have less suffering, to bring together body, mind, and spirit, because our mind tends to go everywhere else, right? Even though body and mind are not separate, the mind tends to think of itself as separate and want to separate itself. So practice to bring your mind back into your body. And that's a beautiful way that your yoga practice can help you release suffering, help you release tension, help you have a better relationship with your body, and more self-love, more self-understanding. So I hope that this solo podcast has helped you, and we talked about a little bit about some of the history of yoga. We talked about the 8 limbs and all of that. If that is something that interests you and you want to learn more about that and how we can bring that into our own life, let me know. Send me an email at hunter@hunteryoga.com, or hit me up at Facebook under Hunter C Yoga, Twitter at Hunter C Yoga. That's Hunter with the letter C and then yoga, because Clark Fields, I just put a C in there. So yeah, let me know. And let me know if you like this kind of thing, and if you have questions you want me to answer. I'd like to connect with you more on this personal level. And I love doing my interviews, but I also love speaking and teaching and things like that. So let me know. Let me know if this is something you'd like to learn more about. And also let me know your reactions to this episode. Is this something that helps you? I'd love to know. I'd really love to know. So that's it for today, my friend. I'm, again, super grateful that you're here. I want to thank the sponsor, me, with Present Mama Community. Check out presentmamacommunity.com for even more support and then a way to connect with me personally through multiple monthly group coaching sessions and a whole library of yoga and meditation practices and mindful parenting practices. And just to let you know, I am working on my mindful parenting course. It's coming up. It's going to be an 8-week-long course. I will be teaching it in person here in the Wilmington, Delaware area. There's an organization that has written a grant for me to be teaching that to a low-income area. So I'm really excited about that. And I will also be teaching it online. So just keep an eye out for that. I've got like a little waiting list going if you want to. I'm going to reach out to the people on the list to get some feedback before the course starts and maybe see what kind of personal challenges that you're going through that this course might help you with. So check that out. And then I want to thank William Fields for his music. Check out his music at williamfields.com. And my friend, have a wonderful, beautiful week. I hope that this podcast has helped, and know that as you practice more self-awareness, you can show up in the world in just a bigger and better and more beautiful way, with more understanding and compassion. And so do practice. Have a wonderful week, my friend. Namaste.